Hello, and welcome to the ISDA AGM studio. I'm joined by Sid Nadella, Global Head of Capital Markets in the Industries team at Google Cloud. Sid, thanks very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Now you, I think, possibly just broke history at an ISDA AGM by demonstrating how artificial intelligence can be used to drive portfolio investment decisions. It was a great presentation. Can you give us a sense about how banks are using artificial intelligence at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. So like financial services institutions in general, we think of them as like using AI and AI services in three different buckets, in three ways. First is around, how do you drive growth in their businesses? And that can be in the form of personalizing experiences for their customers. So like creating personalized experiences for their customers across all their channels. And that's typically enabled by gaining insights from their data in a faster manner, right? Like from unstructured and structured data, and the second, we think of like financial services, for example, as an example, it can be in wealth management, or it can be in like banks and retail brokerages, where they're handling a lot of the customer service tasks, like the manual, repeatable tasks, like are handled by AI agents, and the more sort of complex tasks are handled by skilled representatives in those organizations. So that's the first bucket, and the second, they're driving efficiencies in middle and back office operations. Typically, middle and back office operations have always been like very complex, multiple systems, disparate sources of data, and AI is helping institutions sort of gain insights from these multiple sources of information, tie it all together, and drive like faster settlement times, like more efficient clearing and settlement and collateral management, those sort of things. And a second example in that bucket is probably around like developer productivity. Firms like CME, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, and Goldman Sachs are using developer productivity tools to help their internal developers create code, debugging code, creating tests and things like that right in the development environment, and essentially creating much higher quality of code much faster. And lastly, firms are using AI for more efficient financial risk management. So tools like our AML AI product help like firms detect financial fraud and anti-money laundering in a more efficient and fast and effective manner. Firms like HSBC are using these products and seeing like about 3 to 4x more fraudulent activity or suspicious activity they're able to detect, while 60%, like seeing 60% less, false positives or alerts, right? That's another way.
So, I mean, clearly it's a transformational technology. It's going to change the way markets operate. Can you just finish by just giving us a very brief sense of how banks are managing some of the risks and challenges that are associated with AI?
Yeah. So, that's a great question and very timely, because whenever we talk about AI and these like technologies, bringing them into financial services, a highly regulated market, it has to be a balance between innovation and a highly thoughtful approach in how you implement these things. When it comes to challenges and risks, there's really, broadly speaking, two buckets that we think of. And the first one is robust AI governance. When it comes to AI governance, it's not just about creating rules for this. It's about creating these frameworks ground up. We need policies in place. We need like strong oversight, so everybody knows what their responsibilities are, and we need these AI risk management. We need AI risk management to be integrated into, the financial risk frameworks. This is not a siloed activity. It needs to be considered as a part of the financial risk framework. And the second is around training, right? Training and upskilling people. And institutions need to upskill their entire workforce, all the way from the board down to frontline staff. Everybody needs to be educated on the capabilities of AI, what the limitations are, and what the risks and challenges are. So that way, everybody has an understanding and they can use these tools in a safe and effective manner. I think those are, broadly speaking, two big categories. To get to a more technical level, I would say like most of the time we hear from firms that are on two segments. One is around AI hallucinations. So hallucinations are a major concern. This is when like models can give you a very confident sounding answer And it sounds plausible, but it may not be factual or right. And that's obviously very problematic in a financial services context. There's different ways to mitigate this. Obviously, training models and fine-tuning them using high-quality data helps make them more accurate. But also, you can ground them in specific sources of authorized information, so that way these models can cite where they're getting that information from. It helps verify the accuracy and such. And secondly, AI security is a big concern. Financial services firms deal with highly, confidential information, customer information, and they're very worried about any sort of model data poisoning and data manipulation or unauthorized access of this data via these models. So there's a lot of concerns around that too. And the mitigants around that are typically, for us, from a Google perspective, AI and security comes built in from day one. When we think about AI and AI tools, it's, they need to be built with the right kind of frameworks and controls, and we enable that from ground up, right? So if you think about Google's AI platform, it uses the same secure infrastructure that protects billions of users across all our products, and these things need to be thought of and designed before you put these tools into production.
Great. Well, it's obviously a fascinating space. You're right at the cutting edge. So thank you for taking the time and speaking to the AGM.
Of course.